Alright, so what you're looking at here is a 2014 Chevy Cruze with the big bad 1.8 Ecotech in it. What we're doing today is changing the timing belt, tensioner, and pulley. Now these, the water pumps do not ride on your timing belt. So you can buy the kit with the water pump, or the belt, or the kit with just the tensioner and pulley. I opted for that because I don't see any point in changing a water pump that does not ride on the timing belt. Just because I've seen water pumps, I've seen plenty of cars in the junkyard with the original water pumps, 250,000 miles on them. So I think it's a waste of time and money to change the water pump on a car that the timing belt does not ride on the water pump. So that being said, I got the kit. It's got the tensioner and the pulley and the belt. I actually had a hard time getting the kit because of the strike. Evidently, I guess that plant was closed down for a short period of time. I guess whoever supplies the belts and the components to GM closed their plant for a little bit. I don't know, but I had a hard time finding it. I found it, finally found it, got the kit. And before you do this job, you're going to need some special tools to hold the camshafts in place. This is the kit that I got on Amazon. You really need, let me show you here, these two pieces. These go in between the camshaft and the front. And then you need this locking bar, which goes into the camshaft, into the rear. And that holds everything in place while you have it apart. So I wouldn't try to do this job unless you have this kit. I will put a link to this kit in the description down below. Like I said, it wasn't very expensive. I think it was like 20-25 bucks on Amazon. Actually, the kit is all steel, which is kind of impressive. Usually you would think plastic parts for a $25 kit, but anyway, it wasn't, and I wouldn't try to do this job without them. So anyway, get your kit online if you don't have it. And then this is a pretty straightforward job if you got that. First thing we're going to do is remove that air box housing and all that. And yeah, this isn't super involved. We'll have to remove the valve cover to lock the cams in place in the back and stuff like that. But it's not too super involved as far as timing belts go. So anyway, we'll get to it. I'm going to remove that box first, and then we'll go from there. Alright, I did lie. I jacked the car up first, mainly because I'm 6'5", and I like bending over all day long, killing my back. So, just pull this off. You got all these little Phillips all the way around it. Got one connector here down by the throttle body. That comes off. And then this actually just pulls off. There's one hose that goes in right here. And then that pulls off. And then you're down to where you can kind of see the engine. What I'll do now, this is that connector that goes to the air filter housing. What I'll do now is probably, you have this big motor mount you have to take loose. I think what I'm going to do is take the wheel off and get that inner splash shield off, and we'll pull this belt off and pulley, and then put something under the engine to hold it before we pull this motor mount off. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the wheel and the inner wheel well housing in there, and then I'll get you down there and kind of show you what I'm doing. Alright, so I got the wheel off, and I got this fender well peeled back. You got a bunch of Torx and some of those little clips that pop in. And I got down here, now they use all these E sockets, or the inverted Torx sockets, or whatever you want to call them, female sockets. The tensioner is the E14, and then the main crankshaft pulley here is the E18. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off. And then we're going to get something underneath the engine here to hold it up, just to make sure. We're going to take that main motor mount off up here, which is right here. And we're going to pull that off, and then we'll start pulling these covers off in the valve cover. And here is the tensioner that I already pulled off. Like I said, that's an E14 socket. Now, sometimes you can get 6-point or 12-point sockets to work in place of those. I don't know what the replacement is on this because I just use my E-sockets. But if you have one of these cars, you're probably just better off buying a set of E-sockets because they're all, almost every fastener on here has it. It's real annoying. I guess GM either made them themselves and patented it or whatever. I don't know, but it's super annoying. All these years we've been fine with regular bolts, and then they got to change it to that, so whatever. So go ahead and knock that balancer off, and then we'll put a block under the engine with a jack, and then we'll start taking this motor mount off, and then we should be down to the cover, and then we'll put it in top dead center and do all that good stuff. Alright, so I got the crankshaft pulley off. It's right here. It comes off pretty easy. Again, it's the stupid E18 sockets what you use to get them off. This car's got quite a bit of them. So anyway, we're going to pull this motor mount off, and it's you got 3, 5, looks like 5 bolts, 15 millimeter on the top. We can clear it out of the way, and then there's a few of them that go the other way. But we'll clear out this part first, and then we should be able to take the timing cover off. And I do have a block under the engine, so it doesn't. This is your front motor mount. You can see there, I don't know if you saw, but the engine moved quite a bit. So you do want to put something under there. You got 2 on the body. Actually 3, there's one holding it by the AC line. So once you get those out, you'll pull this big mount out and get that out of the way. Just move it out of the way. And then you still have the mount going this way for the engine. And we'll pull those out. I think there's 3 of those. At least 2. Yeah, I think there's 3 on that. So we'll take those 3 out. And then we should be able to pull this cover off. And we'll be able to see the timing belt and all that good stuff and get down to where we need to be. Now we still have to pull off the valve cover. And like I said, the reason for that is because that camshaft locking tool locks up behind it. I'll show you that when I get to it. But anyway, we'll move this rest of this motor mount out and then start taking this cover off. Alright, once you get that motor mount out of the way, you got this one here. You got the main one that I showed taken off. And then you have this one that has 3 15 millimeter bolts through it. Sits in there this way. So you got 2 on the left side and 1 on the right side. And then you'll have a clear path to your timing cover. So with the pulley off and the belt off and everything off, you should be able to just go ahead and loosen up all these bolts, take this timing cover off, and we should be able to see the timing belt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. You can see there the E bolts, or the E bolts. So anyway, take all those out, and this cover should come off, and then we'll get down to the timing belt, and then we'll pull that. We'll get a top dead center, and then we'll pull this valve cover off and start locking everything in place. Now, all these timing cover bolts, you can see I got this cover off here. Those are E10 sockets, but also a 6.8 millimeter will still work in place of it if you don't have the E sockets. So keep that in mind. If you don't have those sockets, you can normally find a 6-point socket that will fit over them. So all the cover bolts are, if you don't have the socket, is a 6.8 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and finish taking this one off. Still got a few more bolts, and then we'll be down to the belt. Alright, I'm under the car right now. I kind of want to show you something. You got to use this bracket here that comes with your kit to lock the flywheel and the crankshaft in place so it doesn't move when you pull the belt off. Now there's a belt or a bolt that goes right here normally to your transmission. It's right across from your catalytic converter here, and it's right where obviously where the engine and the transmission meet. And what happens is this little tab right here. I'm sorry about the light. I'm kind of under this little tab right here locks into the crankshaft. So you just turn it around, and once you got your engine on top of this center, which I'll show you those marks in a minute, you just insert this, slide in there, and it'll lock the camshaft in place. And now you just put that bolt back. So I'm going to put the bolt back, and I'll kind of show you how yours should look after I get the bolt back. I kind of skipped. I do it a little bit different than what the book says. The book says you use the big crankshaft pulley to put it top dead center. I don't like doing that. It's just easier for me to take that off and then watch the marks on the crankshaft and turn it around. But I'll show you all that. But anyway, I'm going to put that bolt back in, and then I'll show you how it's supposed to look. All right, so that's in there. The bolt's back in there. It's 15 millimeter. And you can see that locking tab that comes with the kit is in there, and that's locked into your flywheel. You know, the teeth that your starter run on to start it, it's in between two of those teeth, and it's locked in, and the bolt's in. So that keeps your crankshaft from moving on you when you're doing your timing belt. It's kind of overkill the way this kit's set up, but that's the way GM wants it, so that's how we do it. So I'll go ahead and show you the timing marks, how they're set up, and I'll show you what I did with the camshafts. And then we'll go ahead and start removing this. We have to adjust the tensioner and put a locking pin in that. And then we'll go ahead and pull this belt off and put the new one in and start getting this thing back together. One thing, you do not want to leave this in there. Don't forget to take this out once you get your new belt in and everything's good, because you don't want to tear up your flywheel. I mean, the least case scenarios, you would bend this and mess it up, but that would be, you know, if you mess up your flywheel, you're really going to be in a world of hurt taking the transmission out. So anyway, I'll show you where the timing marks are at, what I did up for top, and then we'll continue on. All right, so I'm going to show you the timing marks. You can see here on the crankshaft pulley, there's a big notch in the pulley. There's an arrow here on the case on the engine. Those two need to be lined up, 6 o'clock. And you want to have this lined up before you lock your crankshaft in place with that bolt I just showed you. I know I'm kind of going out of order here, but I just want to show you what's going on. So once you get this lined up, your two camshafts, if you're not 180 out, should be facing each other on the marks up for top, which they are. I'll show you that in a minute. And this should be, you know, 6 o'clock. This mark and this mark should line up. Now, if these two are lined up and your camshafts are opposite each other, then you're 180 out and you're not on the compression stroke. So in that case, you would turn this one more turn, and then they should be lined up. So you want it to look like this down here, and then I'll take you up top and show you what I got going on up top. All right, I'm sure that was kind of a rough ride, sorry. So here's the top. I already got the tool locked in. You have a mark right here on your intake camshaft, and that's on the actual kind of like the phaser part of it. And then on the actual sprocket on the exhaust camshaft, you have a little dot. So they're marked here with orange, and those should line up with the lines on your camshaft locking tool. And since this camshaft, your intake camshaft, has a lip around it right here, you have to slide this side in first and then slide this side in second. And then once those are locked in, really can't go anywhere, but they still have you take off the valve cover and use this locking bar. There's 2 slots on the back of each one of these camshafts, and you just slide into those slots. And basically, even though I think it's overkill, that's what they want you to do, and so that's what we did. And anyway, so this is all locked up. This motor really can't turn on the camshaft or the crankshaft. On the camshafts, either one of the camshafts or the crankshaft cannot turn. So the next thing we do is we're going to loosen this tensioner here. There's an Allen fitting right here. You loosen it up, turn the Allen until you get the locking pin in there, and you lock the pin in there, and that should take the tension off the belt, and then remove this idler pulley, take the belt off and replace it. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up. and turn this tensioner until I can lock the pin in, and then I'll show you that, and then we'll go about taking this belt off. Alright, I kind of forgot how to go over I didn't go over the valve cover too much. You're going to have to remove your center cover for your coil pack, and then there's the Allen wrenches or Torx for that. You move your coil pack, unplug it from the connector, move that out of the way. This has 3 little tabs you press in on. You get a little screwdriver, press in on this tab, and this tab, and that'll release this harness. And just go around and get all your bolts. There's one right in the middle of the valve cover that you may miss. Get that out. And then that valve cover just pops right off. I forgot about that when I did the video, or when I was recording. So anyway, after you got everything locked in, you're positive it's all lined up right, you lock it in. Go ahead and take off your idler pulley, which is right here with the Torx. And then once that's off, the belts will slip off, and then we can go ahead and take off the tensioner here. Now you can relieve the tension with the Allen. And there's a locking tool, but I really don't know the point of the locking tool, because once you get the idler off, there's no tension on it anyway. So go ahead and remove this tensioner, or this idler pulley. Then we'll remove this tensioner, take the belt off, and then we'll put the new stuff on. Alright, so I got the belt off, I got the tensioner off, and the idler. Whenever you do a timing belt, you always want to replace your tensioner and your idlers. You know, these have bearings in it, and if they go out, this is an interference engine, and you will bend valves or whatever, cause destruction. So it's always a good idea to replace this. This kit's from Canada. It's a Dayco kit. It was the only kit I could find with the strike and everything. Supposedly AC Delco's behind on their parts. I don't know, but that's what I was told. So anyway, I'm going to put all this new stuff in. I'll kind of show you. This right here, the spring, has to lock into the block a certain way, and then you just tighten it down. So anyway, we'll get to that. But I would definitely recommend changing both of these out and getting new ones, just because it's an interference engine. And I mean, it costs a little more, but at least you have peace of mind knowing that your bearings are new in both of these. So anyway, I'm going to get over there, put this on, and start putting this thing back together. Alright, so I'm over by the car again. You can see here's that spring. That has to line up and go inside this bracket, this cutout here on the engine case. Make sure that's lined in there and in there good, otherwise you'll screw this whole tensioner up. So make sure that's in there, and then go ahead and tighten the bolt. And then you got your idler down here, go ahead and tighten that one, and then we'll put the belt back on. I'll show you the order which it goes, and then should be ready to start buttoning this thing back up. Alright, so it's all on. What you want to do is get it around your crankshaft first, make sure it's locked in, pull it tight up around this tensioner. You're gonna, you've already installed these two, you've locked that one spring in where it's supposed to go, and you run it up along here, lock it into your exhaust camshaft, get it locked into these teeth around here, get it up around here, go into your intake camshaft, make sure it's tight in between here, and then go around. And if all your teeth are lined in, then take your Allen wrench and pull this way, and the belt will slip on. Now, if the belt doesn't slip on, then that means probably one of your teeth, some of your teeth are not lined up or not sitting where they're supposed to sit. So go through and double check it. It's pretty rough because, the whole engine is locked in with the locks and all that. So if you don't have it perfectly lined up, all the teeth lined up, it won't go over the tensioner. So, which is good because you're not nothing can move out of time while you're doing it. But at the same time, it kind of makes a brand new belt hard to get on because those are usually a little tighter anyway, and it has to be on perfectly for it to go on. So after you get all that done, what we'll do now is release that plate back there, take these out, and get that lost my mind. My flywheel lock, take that out, make sure that's out, and then we'll turn this over 2 full revelations, and then we'll take it back to top dead center and the bottom. Make sure these two are back where they're supposed to be. If they are, then we're good to go. We can put it back together and fire this thing up. So at this point, double check all your marks, which they shouldn't have moved. Almost impossible for them to move. Double check and make sure all your teeth are in all the way around. And then you can go ahead and start removing all your locks. There's 3 locks, don't forget. You got these 2, that one back there, and then the one down by the starter. Get all those out and then turn it over twice and make sure, by hand, and then make sure everything's lined back up, and then you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll start putting it back together. Alright, so before you turn the engine over 720 degrees, make sure you got all these parts. You should have these 2 out and these 2 out. Once you do that, go ahead and turn it over 720. I've already done that on this, and you can see the 2 marks are lined back up. So this is good to get. This is good to go to get put back together. So I'll go ahead and put the timing covers back on, and then we'll start bolting this thing back up. Alright, so the covers are back on, valve covers back on. Don't forget you got this little connection back here on the valve cover, and then this just snaps on in those clips. And then you got your coil pack still we'll put on, and that connector in case, and then that'll be it for the valve cover. Now this, if you got the valve cover gasket is technically reusable. It's a rubber gasket, but if you got 100,000 miles on it like this car does, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and replace that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish putting the rest of this back to get the valve cover back together, and then button this thing back up, and then we'll see if it starts. So I'm going to get the coil pack and the little cover and a few other little things, and then we'll put this motor mount back on and the tensioner and all that good stuff. Alright, so I went ahead and put this main motor mount back in. It's 3 bolts, 15 mil that go into the block. And I put the serpentine belt on. So now we got left is to line up the main motor mount up here and then put the air box in. I know I'm kind of glossing over the reassembly, but it's all pretty simple and self-explanatory if you took it apart. So anyway, I'm going to hit this, the belts in, so I'm going to go ahead and put that big mount back on, and then we'll be able to release the jack from underneath it and just button up the air filter, and then we'll see if she starts, which we know she will, but anyway. And then you got a few other connectors, but nothing major. Alright, I don't know if you can tell what this says, kind of janky, trying to do a screen on a screen, but it says to reset the change timing belt message. After the engine timing belt is replaced, reset the change timing belt message by locating and removing the fuse that supply the instrument cluster for 2 minutes. So basically you're going to go find the instrument cluster fuse, pull that out for 2 minutes, put it back in, and that should reset the light on your the one that says, not the light, but the message that says change the timing belt. So anyway, that's it for this. All I have to do is put my inner fender well back in and tire, put the wheel back on, and I'm done with this. So I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe to Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you on the next one. I'm going to get this hoopty back on the road. And God bless. Thanks for watching.